President Trump is set to make an announcement to the United States tonight where he will address the nation live from the Oval Office at 9 p.m. The question on everybody's mind is, what is he going to talk about when it comes to the Iran war? Is he going to double down? Is he going to backtrack? Is he going to declare victory and try to walk away? Or is he going to use that as an opportunity to say, we're leaving NATO, or some combination of all of that? Everything on the world is possible. And we're going to try and make some sense out of it, as well as take a look at what's going on and what are maybe some of the options of what the president could do. And we've got back with us today the ever popular Larry Johnson, former CIA analyst, the king at sonar21.com and the son of a new American Revolution. I know I probably shouldn't say that, but I did anyway. Son of a new American Revolution on Substack, which is go-to information if you want to know what the heck is going on in the world. Larry, welcome back to the show as always.
Yeah, I'm the king of my own kingdom, like the the one-eyed man.
You are. I love that shirt, man. I mean, you got the you got the pineapples on there, and I guess margaritas and whatever else. That's good stuff, man. Making me kind of thirsty.
This was a gift from one of my contributors who happens to live in Hawaii. He said, you got enough Florida shirts. You got to have a Hawaiian shirt. So
I think that's a good one. It definitely fits in. Well, speaking of, actually, we're not speaking of Hawaiian, but let's go on to what in the heck is going on here, because President Trump, after last night, yesterday afternoon, around 5 o'clock or so, he had a press conference and he says, hey, you know what? We're probably 2 or 3 weeks away from having this war wrapped up anyway. We're kind of in the last throes of it. Didn't explain how in the world he can believe we would get there, especially with the Strait of Hormuz closed down. He did take the opportunity to bash some of our allies, but that was kind of minor at the point. And then a few hours later, the White House announced that there's going to be an address to the nation tonight from the Oval Office at 9 p.m., which is usually reserved for only the most solemn and important of announcements. And then to shake things up a little bit more, this morning, like 7:30, I think, 8:45, sorry, it was even later than that, President Trump on Truth Social said Iran's new regime president, we can debate what that means about new president, since it's the same one, much less radicalized and far more intelligent than his predecessors, has just asked the United States of America for a ceasefire. We will consider the Hormuz Strait. We will consider when the Hormuz Strait is open, free, and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. A couple things on there. Let's just start at the end of that. To what extent might that threat push Iran in any directions about being bombed into the Stone Age? Is that even possible?
No. The United States will run out of bombs before it could even get to that point. But again, this is one more example that Donald Trump is completely divorced from reality. The Iranian president is Pezeshkian. He's not a new president. He's been on the job for at least 2 years. So whatever Trump's talking about there is completely out of touch. Number two, the Iranians have not asked for a ceasefire, nor are they going to ask for a ceasefire. The only condition that they're going to insist on is the United States leave all of its military bases in the Persian Gulf, and that all the sanctions on Iran be lifted. Those, that's the starting. Those things have to be in place before Iran will even entertain negotiations for a possible ceasefire.
Now, it looks like, Larry, if we're just trying to figure this out, that in the first part of that Truth Social, where he says the new president, he may have meant the new supreme leader, because as you pointed out, Pezeshkian is still very much in play. But then even that starts to fall apart, because then you see the only person who's talked anything at all about this in recent times, at least publicly, is Pezeshkian. And maybe he got that confused, because here's what he actually said the day before. This was reported on Radio Free Europe, is that this is Pezeshkian speaking, we possess the necessary will to end this conflict, provided that essential conditions are met, which you just talked about, especially the guarantees required to prevent repetition of this aggression. The solution to normalizing the situation is the cessation of their aggressive attacks. And maybe when President Trump just saw Pezeshkian said something about ending the conflict and a cessation of activities, maybe he thought, maybe they're begging me for one. What do you make of that juxtaposition of all of that?
Well, and then the confusion is further highlighted by the comments yesterday of the press secretary. She kept talking about Iran is defeated. She used the word defeated over and over. And, it brought to mind the scene from the movie Princess Bride, where you have William Shawn, the actor, the little short actor, and Mandy Patinkin, who's playing the Spanish guy. And William Shawn keeps saying, inconceivable. And finally, Mandy Patinkin goes, I don't think that word means
sure
what you think it means. And that's here's Carolyn Levitt, defeated. Iran is defeated. Why don't they recognize they're defeated? Because they're not defeated. That's why. And the fact that the White House keeps, it's so nonsensical. It's so ridiculous. It would be if we pulled this out of a time capsule and we had no context about who the players were. We just saw these people speaking, and in the background you could see the reality of the world. Somebody would think it was a comedy show, that it was just pure satire. But no, it's real. And so the Trump administration is completely out of touch with reality.
Yeah, and if anybody was confused about that, thinking, well, maybe President Trump knew something behind the scenes, and really the Iranians were asking him for a negotiation, that seems to have been turned off, because this is reported by Al Jazeera here just a little bit ago. Senior Iranian official has laughed in response to you talking about the whole issue of maybe there was some kind of a comedy show. Apparently, he thought the same. His response to President Donald Trump's claim that Iran's president had asked for a ceasefire. Al Jazeera's reporter says Trump's comments today came a day after Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran wasn't looking for a ceasefire. And we have that a portion of that interview. Gary, if you can roll that from last night. It was actually posted this morning from Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi.
We receive messages from the American side. Some are direct, and others come through our friends in the region. Wherever necessary, we respond to them. Therefore, there is currently no negotiation between us. Claims made in this regard are not correct. Our conditions for ending the war are clear. We do not accept a ceasefire. We are seeking an end to the war, not only in Iran but across the entire region. We seek guarantees that such aggressions will not be repeated, as well as the payment of compensation for the extent of the damages inflicted on us and on the people of Iran.
So that was made last night, but it was published about 5 hours before President Trump made that Truth Social, and it explicitly says no ceasefire at all, and only these terms that you mentioned a second ago. I mean, the discontinuity between these two, I mean, it's gone beyond laughable. If we're trying to find an end to this war, I mean, what does that tell you about the decision-making process at the highest levels of the U.S. government?
Well, it's very cynical, and I would suggest it's also corrupt. We've had reports in the last 2 days that Pete Hegseth's stockbroker was trying to get Hegseth's portfolio to include a new mutual fund being offered. I think it was by Blackwater, that would be based upon all the defense industries. So, if you got war and you got to spend more on weapons, you're going to make money. Here's Trump, his remarks talking about, hey, the end is in sight. The light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to be over soon. That had an immediate effect yesterday and today on the stock market in the United States. It boosted it over 1%, a significant increase. And it also pushed down the international price of oil, at least Brent crude. Brent yesterday got up to like 118, and then by late yesterday, after Trump's remarks, it was down to like 102, 101. So a significant fall off. So this is an example of Trump manipulating the stock market, and these idiot people that are on the stock market. They're supposed to be smart traders. They're just going along with it, and they may be waking up to a real shock by tomorrow morning.
And let's take a look at that, because Trump has been doing that quite a bit. He just in the last 7 or 8 days, he's made a number of just bombshell statements that did have an impact on, especially on the price of oil. It was always a temporary when it drop, sometimes precipitously, and then start trending back up, drop again, start trending back up. But we're running into a situation now where there's some hardcore issues at stake here. And this one I thought was really important to point out here. Current OPEC production is down 10.6 million barrels per day versus February. Bigger drop than the peak of COVID. And you take a look at the drop here in the production. You see there's the COVID one right here. And then here's the current one, which is still dotted line, probably still heading down. Those are some hardcore issues. You can manipulate the market a bit, but you have issues, Larry, like we've already had in Vietnam, in South Korea, and several other places, to where they're already feeling the drop in this because there's not enough fuel. They're having shortages. They're rationing in South Korea. I was on an Australian TV show yesterday, and while I was waiting to go on, they had a farmer or a report from a farm right before that where they were talking about, which you had been mentioned from the beginning, urea has been stopping. Now then, that's starting to have ramifications and manifestations on the ground. And he said they are seriously concerned about crop yields, even on top of the additional price they're paying for what they can get with fertilizers, because a lot of that some of it can also come from China. But I mean, this is starting to have some real impact that you're just not going to be able to talk your way out of.
Well, and jet fuel has tripled over the last 3 weeks, tripled in price. And so airlines are having to pass those costs on. They're cutting back on flights. So the contraction of the global economy is well underway. It's not expanding. It's not growing. It's not. It's doing the exact opposite. And in fact, there was, I forget the name, the particular company that laid off 30,000 employees here in the United States today. Is one of the tech companies. So we're starting the whole ramifications of this blockade of the chokehold that Iran now has on the Strait of Hormuz is significant. And, the reality is the United States does not have a military option for opening it up, even though we keep talking like we can. And so until the full weight of these economic impacts start, really punching people in the gut, we're going to continue with some of this fantasy like, oh, yeah, this is going to end soon and it'll all be over. That people just don't understand how grave and serious the situation is.
Now, it's starting to appear that some are starting to get it, and it's some people that are really important to President Trump and could be part of why he's going to make this comment tonight. We'll talk a little bit more specifically on what he may say here, but this is a friend of the show, Robert Barnes, who's been on us a few times, is reporting that for the first time ever, Trump has a net negative rating with working class white voters. First time ever. And you can see there that the approve is only 35% and disapprove is 64%. I mean, it's hugely underwater here. And those are some of the voters that he absolutely has to have to get anything done that he wants to. I mean, even aside from this, I mean, he's still got just a little bit under 3 years of time left in office.
Yeah.
And of course, he's facing the midterms, and that's obviously going to be a huge issue right there that could be of just a shellacking, maybe a historic shellacking here. What do you think that pressure does, that political pressure here among voters, to him to try to figure a way to get out of this?
Why would he care? He's not up for election again. If he was standing for election, he might be concerned. And until these other Republicans start realizing what a desperate situation they face, Trump can continue to basically thumb his nose at the Constitution, ignore the law, ignore international law, and plunge the United States deeper and deeper into crisis. Like tonight, what Trump should do, he would appear and say, look, I need to apologize to the nation. I've launched us into a unnecessary war. I was wrong. We're going to pull back. We're going to focus upon building America first and get back to what I promised. But he's not going to do that. That's what he should do. So I think he's reached really a point of no return that I think he's embarked on a trajectory that is going to worsen the situation militarily for the United States, and it will certainly damage the economy further.
And there's you talked about Republicans. When are they going to realize some of this stuff? Well, he has had the stalwart backing of a number of key Republican, I guess, voices, if you will, but influential people that have been not just supporting what he wants, but I think pushing him in a direction that he wants to go. And we've shown a lot of stuff with Jack Keane, who's routinely on and has been, you remember right before this war kicked off, he was one of those that was saying no, in January especially, no negotiations. We don't want a negotiation. A successful negotiation would be a loss. We can't have a situation where this regime stays in power. We've got to get rid of them, et cetera. Well, and then if anybody could outdo Jack Keane, it was going to be Lindsey Graham. And then we put together a little, actually, we got this off the Daily Show. I'll just give credit where it's due. They did a piece last night that showed Lindsey Graham from, I think it's 2025 and going back to 2007 with one constant message. See if you can use your incredible sense of articulation and analysis to figure out what that message is.
I would urge President Trump to go all in to make sure that when this operation is over, there's nothing left standing in Iran regarding their nuclear program. We're going to blow up all your oil refineries. Hit Iran. Blow it off the map. Don't underrate killing them all. That gets everybody's attention.
I don't know.
It is now time for them to pay a price. We'll use military force, destroy the Air Force, sink their Navy. We need to look at military options. We should destroy their ability to make conventional war. I think it's better to use military force than it is to allow them to have a nuclear weapon. The most dangerous thing in the world, in my opinion, would be the regime in Iran possessing a nuclear weapon. And if military force is necessary, then so be it.
Okay, I said 2007, 2006. So a nice tidy 20 years. That guy who you saw in the 2025 clip there, who said, if anyone is left standing, this is a complete disaster. Now then is saying this, Graham to Trump, wind down the Iran war, wind up efforts for a peace deal. I have no words. Do you?
Oh my God. Yeah. I hadn't seen that. That tells you what kind of trouble we're in, the Republicans are in, because when Graham, with that legacy, when he's basically waving the white flag, that tells Trump that he should stop. And until seeing that, I'm of the mind that Trump's going to double down on invading Iraq and Iran and putting troops on the ground. But maybe, just maybe, with that kind of pressure now from Graham, where he's reversing himself, could signal that Trump now recognizes the ship is sunk, or it's sinking fast, and he's got to do something to try to stop the sinking.
Well, unfortunately, that's not the only video that we have here. Gary, if you can get ready to play the one by Keane that we had also, because if Lindsey Graham seems to be trying to go, oh, snap, and trying to backpedal, Jack Keane doesn't.
Our commanders are confident that they can open and secure these straits going forward. The plan would be to pass this responsibility to our allies and then let them continue with it, and we will pull away. How we negotiate that transfer, yet to be seen. The other thing you mentioned is Carg Island. For our viewers to understand, Carg Island, 90% of the oil distribution goes through that island. It reaches it by pipelines, and then the ships are loaded out of the distribution points. And we've already taken down all the military targets on that island. We have a choice to make. Do we occupy it and take control of it, or blockade it, or we destroy it? That is a presidential decision. In any way, what the result will be quite profound, and I believe it's checkmate for the regime.
Checkmate for the regime. Good deal. We're going to win this, and maybe that's what he's going to announce tonight. Have you ever played chess? And maybe he doesn't know what checkmate means.
Yeah. He is. He's ignoring the fact that 2 weeks ago, President Trump, now 3 weeks ago, President Trump and Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury, lifted all oil sanctions on Iran. In other words, Iran was allowed to sell as much oil as it could pump out of the ground and ship out of the country as it could. Well, why? Because the shortage that is caused by no oil coming out of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and United Arab Emirates, because of that shortage, they had to do something to try to get supply up so that the prices would not go into astronomical territory. But, already in the United States, gas is up on average over $4 a gallon, whereas it was like $2.50 in February. The King completely misunderstands what Carg Island involves, as far as it's only one. It's the largest output for Iran, but that's simply because it's an easy place to load up and ship out. They have 4 other terminals that they can ship from, so it's just a matter they can divert to those. So this is not going to cripple the Iranian economy, but what it will do is put U.S. troops in a position where they will be exposed and unprotected, and not only will face being killed or wounded, but also face the legitimate prospect of being captured. And then all of a sudden, the United States is dealing with having a bunch of its troops as prisoners of war, and add one other layer of negotiations to our relations with Iran.
Now, I'm going to get to the what we can speculate about what may be on President Trump's agenda tonight, what he's going to talk about at this 9 p.m. briefing, because it could be a number of things. We'll look at some of those. But we have this breaking news just released a few minutes ago. Iran's president to release an important letter to the American people in a few hours. Iranian official Mehdi Tabatabai, sorry for that, has to say. So it seems like we're getting a little bit of a dueling narratives here, that the Iranians are going to try and preempt Trump. I think that's very interesting. I've never seen anything like that before. What do you make of that?
Well, they're going to tell they will reiterate their demands on what it's going to take to end this war, and make it clear that they're not negotiating. There are no negotiations, and that Trump is lying. The sort of to back up that letter, today, Iran has launched the heaviest barrage of weapons, of missiles, against both U.S. bases and in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, in United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, and in Israel. The targets in Israel, they're getting pounded, absolutely pounded. So instead of backing off, there was some commentary yesterday that Iran hadn't launched as many attacks, but part of that was because the United States and Israel had scaled back. And then as dawn broke in Iran, the United States and Israel started hitting targets again, killing civilians, largely killing civilians, hitting a school, killing some more school children. And so now Iran is just they are going to the ultimate limit of what they're capable of doing. And there's a video footage circulating showing almost the complete destruction of Mossad headquarters in Haifa. When you see the film, it looks a little bit like the Oklahoma City bombing.
Wow.
From the 1990s. So Iran, Trump has been gaslighting the American public about the progress in the war in Iran, about the state of the war, and Iran's commitment to fighting. Iran's not going to surrender. And in fact, Iran's making long-term plans. They, along with Oman, are now going to control who gets to come in and out of the Persian Gulf. Yeah, and that's going forward. And is Jack Keene's notion that that there's something the United States can do militarily to open the Gulf, lift the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz? No, the only way to do this, because to have the Strait of Hormuz open is to say there is no more a threat that a missile or a drone could be targeted at a merchant ship traversing that strait. Well, the only way you're going to do that is you're going to have to disarm Iran, because no matter what you take down on the coast, and on the coast, they've got some formidable entrenchments that we will be hard placed to try to disrupt or destroy. They've got built into the wall, these sheer cliff walls, they've got caves, launch pads for missiles and rockets there. They have underground access into the water so that they can actually put submersibles, maritime drones under without being visible from the shore. They've got these little suicide boats. They're drones, but they run on top of the water. They've got many submarines which launch torpedoes. So, if we're militarily going to get rid of all that, that means you have to assemble a large enough force that can cover 100-mile long stretch of beach. And in that 100 miles, you're going to have to be able to put troops up sheer cliff walls. And then they're going to have to penetrate, probably 100, 200 miles into the interior of Iran. Now, so we're talking maybe minimum of 1 million man army to do that, and assemble that, put it together, get them trained, get them deployed, and then deal with all the body bags that come home. That's what I'm saying. You can sketch it out on paper that, okay, we could run this operation, but what would we accomplish? The cost would be so high, so terrible at the end. We're not willing to pay that cost.
And let me just bluntly say, I agree with your assessment and your accounting of what it would take. There's still no guarantee of success. In fact, I would say that the advantages would overwhelmingly go to the defenders in mountainous terrain. I mean, look at what the Russians did in the defense against the Ukrainian side, and that was against, it was forested areas. This is in mountains where every advantage would go to the defense, and you would have to pick that out. You can take a look at what happened to going up in World War II, going up the boot of Italy, going through all that mountains, and that's a very narrow band. This is, like you said, you're talking hundreds of miles wide and then hundreds of miles deep. It's impossible. I don't think even a million troops could get it done, and that would come at catastrophic cost. So I think the bottom line is that there is no military solution even sketchable.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's what's so worrisome about the word that's coming out now, and again through open source, not through classified sources, but they have deployed a squadron of A-10 Warthogs, this plane that's best used for close air support. It can also be used to attack small boats in the Persian Gulf. Apache helicopters. Again, Apache helicopters are designed for close air support with troops and in ground attacks. And that's just been deployed in the last three or 4 days. And so the amount of aviation equipment, of combat equipment that's flowing into the region, along with additional troops that are being surged forward, that indicates there's going to be an attack.
And actually, I wanted to talk to you about next year, because this is Mario's reporting here from the Atlantic. He said U.S. officials are planning 2 high-risk operations: seizing Karg Island, Iran's main oil export hub, and sending special forces inside Iran to capture uranium. The goal would be to cripple Iran's energy exports and directly secure nuclear materials. Both plans are fully prepared, with forces logistics in place, just awaiting Trump's final approval. Through any of your sources, do you have any knowledge whether this is accurate assessment of what may come or not?
Well, I think yes. I think it's on the menu. Let's put it that way. But the seizure of the nuclear material. Now, again, my information is 20 years old, but I worked and I helped script and then execute a U.S. military exercise on that very scenario. And people don't realize how difficult that is, because to carry that out, you have to, because of the distance involved, where those sites are in Iran, they're not just 5 miles or 20 miles inside the borders. They're 300, 400, 500 miles inside Iran. So that means your helicopters don't have the legs. They're not able to fly that entire distance and then fly back. They've got to be refueled. Now, we dealt with that refueling issue back in 1980 in the very early days of Delta Force, and JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command, was in its infancy. And what they did then is they flew some C-130 aircraft had flown in advance to a spot in the desert where they put out fuel bladders. And then as the force that was going to try to rescue the hostages arrived at that destination to refuel so they could make it all the way to Tehran, they had an accident where a helicopter and one of the planes collided and killed I think 6 people. I don't recall the exact number. And I've got actually a good friend of mine. He was a young Army Ranger. He later went on to become a Delta Force sniper, but he was doing the perimeter security when those two planes, when the plane and the helicopter collided. So you got to deal with how would you get these special operation forces to their destination. You're going to have a refueling stop somewhere, and then if in the event that they get this radioactive material, let's understand it's not inert, but it's heavy, and it's got to be shielded with additional concrete and lead, and so all of a sudden then you've got to have additional lift capability in order to haul it out. So yeah, they can write it down as a plan on paper, but actually executing it and having a reasonable chance of success, no. That I think that's more of a suicide mission for any special operations troops that are assigned to do that.
We have some additional breaking news here. This is from the ABC News White House correspondent. It says that this is about an hour old. White House officials tell me that Trump will give an operational update on the progress of Operation Epic Fury tonight at 9 p.m. The official says Trump will reiterate the 2 to 3 week timetable that he did yesterday for ending the operation and will highlight the military's success in achieving all his stated goals, he said. And they're talking about the destroying the ballistic missiles, annihilating their Navy, ensuring terrorist proxies will not destabilize the nation, and guaranteeing that Iran will never attain a nuclear weapon. Other than that, everything is going swimmingly. But then they also talk about what's not there, notably absent. The Strait of Hormuz does not appear on the list, a notable omission given Trump's conflicting public statements on the conditions for ending the war. So if that is true, I mean, let's just walk down that a second, that he's going to say that we're achieving all of our goals, destroying their ballistic missiles, annihilating their Navy, ensuring the proxies are no longer destabilizing nations, and guarantees about a nuclear weapon. Larry, as I look at this, I don't see a single one of those has been done. And then you can add the Hormuz thing, so it's now worse than it was before. What do you say to that?
Well, and then go back to you played earlier in the show, the tweet, the X, the truth that he put out this morning, where he talked about there won't be a ceasefire until when the Hormuz Strait is open, free, and clear. Okay. So you can't have any kind of agreement to stop the fighting until Hormuz Strait is open, free, and clear. So he may not have put it on that other list, but that's there, very clear if he means. So I've given up trying to read into Trump's statements. What does he mean this? Does he not mean this? Let's just look at what is being done. What are the decisions? The decisions are we're sending a new squadron of A-10s to supplement an existing squadron of A-10s in theater, and they have only one purpose: close air support and attacks close to the front line.
With ground troops.
Yeah, they're sending in Apaches. Again, same mission set. They've deployed the 2 battalions of the 75th Rangers, who are considered a Tier 2 unit that support Tier 1 units, SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. So they're in theater. And they've sent the 82nd. They're in theater. And the 11th MEU is 31st MEU has already arrived. 11th MEU is en route. That means you're getting ready to expand your military attack, not diminish it. This is not just a show of force. This is getting ready to actually do something. So, Trump, he's all over the board. He says,
and you mentioned this earlier. So one of the things on that list there was he's going to claim that we're achieving success and we're ahead of schedule, which he said a number of times. One of the things was on the ballistic missiles. And then you mentioned it earlier. This was actually from the Jerusalem Post. This happened actually while John Mearsheimer was on the show this morning. 10 ballistic missiles were fired in the past few minutes, making it one of the most significant barrages in weeks. So, I mean, obviously that was not a coincidence, or it just happened to be that way. That's in light of what President Trump said. And then Iran is showing, yeah, sure, you're knocking us out here. And in a similar one, if you can talk a little bit about the claim that they're going to say we've knocked out their Navy, we've knocked out 92% of their ships. I hear that all the time by Central Command, and they show all those videos of these big ships being knocked, the torpedo knocking them from a submarine. Is that really their Navy, though?
No. I mean, look, what they're calling the Navy, we would call a Coast Guard, because these ships that were, the ships that are not submersible, we've destroyed a bunch of them. Okay, so we've destroyed their quote Coast Guard. That wasn't part of their strategic depth. They lose that. Okay, so what? Does that mean they've crippled their military power? The same thing with the Air Force. Oh, we blew up all these combat jets that they had. That's not how that was not their offensive capability. The offensive capability are these missiles, ballistic missiles that are being fired out of the ground that we can't stop and we can't destroy. They are, according to Alistair Crook, who's been there and has observed, some of them are 500 meters to 800 meters underground. I mean, that is, it's quite a distance, and they're in granite mountains and quite protected. So, and despite claims that they were going to run out of missiles, remember at the outset, the intelligence community estimate was that Iran only had about 3,000, maybe less than 4,000 missiles. Well, guess what? They fired more than that already, now going into the 5th week of this. So clearly our intelligence community didn't have any reliable intelligence on this. And Trump, I don't care what Trump says tonight. It's what are the actual orders that the military is carrying out. And right now, those orders they are deploying forces who have execution orders for attacking targets in Iran. And this includes the use of ground forces, airborne, and special operations.
Okay, so let's take a look at let's look graphically at what that means here. I've got on the map here the Iranian coastline, and it's roughly 906 miles from the edge of its border all the way up through the Horseshoe Bend, and then all the way up to past Karg Island right here.
Right.
So with the amount of troops that you just mentioned, the 11th and 31st Marine Expeditionary Units, some of the 82nd Airborne Light Infantry, and then some Delta Force Rangers and some, handful of others, apparently up to 10,000 additional forces, which I haven't seen described, ground forces are en route, or at least are on deployment orders. Let's just give the full contingent. Let's say it's 20,000 ground troops. What can they do along this territory here that they can achieve? We'll just keep it at operational, something with operational impact that would help the United States. What can those troops do, and where might they do it?
Well, the answer is nothing. There's no, because the first issue is, how do you get them there? So you've really got two methods of delivery. They're going to be delivered via an amphibious ship, a ship that has amphibious boats on it. Remember the difference between a boat and a ship. A ship is something that can carry boats, so the smaller craft. So those ships are about the size of a small aircraft carrier. How could they cannot transit that Horseshoe Bend without being attacked by Iran. and the odds are that they would be sunk even before they got north. So that right there, that first choke point, and it's not, it looks wide on the map, but the fact is there are some narrow channels in there that the ships have to follow. Otherwise they can run aground. So, you take out the amphibious option for landing troops, because whenever you get one of those ships within 50 miles of the Iranian coast, they're going to be targeted with drones and missiles. So
let's take a look at CARG, since that was specifically mentioned as apparently one of the options here. Just for news, I'm going to say here from apparently the closest point in Kuwait up to CARG is 120 miles. 120 miles. So talk us through about the challenges and opportunities for us to launch an aerial assault with the various types of helicopters on CARG Island.
Yeah. So if you got a Chinook 47, because that can carry the most, I think that's capable of carrying 20 troops with combat loads. So just do the math. Okay, we got 20. We've got we want to have 1,000. So we only need 50 flights of helicopters. And so where are you going to assemble that number? Because all those spots along that coast of Saudi Arabia could be hit with Iranian missiles easily, and drones, because Iran's got drones that go that far. So to assemble that force, or let's say that they're going to launch them amphibiously. Again, you fly in on C-17, a bunch of the amphibious boats. I'm not sure how many they can carry. If it's 2, 3, or 4 per flight. But again, the landing craft that would be used by Marines, it's going to get assembled, and ISR, with the help of Russian and Chinese, are going to pass on to the Iranians. This is where it's located. They can begin destroying those deployment points before anybody even gets on board a craft. So the other option is, as you said, the airborne assault. But again, that means you've got to assemble a large number of rotary wing. Maybe you can just do an airborne assault with parachutes. Now that's, 82nd, that's what they do. Marines are not universally trained to do that. But again, once you drop them, then you get the issue of resupplying them, allowing them to, they usually drop with enough ammunition, food, water to sustain themselves for about 24 hours. But Iran's got military forces on that island, and they've got civilians.
By the way, Austria can carry 24 combat troops there. So,
and again, it's we get 5 Osprey, we got 120 troops. So it's barely a company size element. There are no magical solutions. We're still living in the past. We're living as if we were back in 2002, 2003 in February, sitting in our camps in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, ready to cross the border into Iraq. And the Iraqis didn't really have a missile threat. They fired a couple of Scuds, but it wasn't anything sustained and that dangerous. So we had that luxury. Well, we no longer have that luxury. So then the military planners have got to say, how do we get the largest massive force assembled and then deployed and employed at a point of attack? And all of that's assuming that there's not much pushback or opposition coming from Iran, which I think is a damn dangerous idea, because the Iranians, they've been through this before. They fought a U.S.-backed invasion back in 1980 that went on from 1980 to 1988. And it is so. In fact, I don't know if you've ever had Professor Morandi on your show. Now, Professor Morandi was actually born in Virginia, but when he returned with his family to Iran when he was 15, 16, he joined the army, and he was in combat. And he was wounded twice.
We've had him on the show here recently. He mentioned that very fact.
Yeah. So someone like Professor, he doesn't talk about combat as if it's imaginary. He's been there on the front lines. He's fought. So they know what it is to defend their country. And the Americans forget that in this case, we're going to be invading a country where these people they love their nation. They have an ancient history, regardless of what we think about has happened over the last 40 years. They look at it in terms of centuries, not just decades.
And let's take a look at one other thing that President Trump, because we're trying to divine what he may be talking about tonight. The other bombshell that he dropped today after this Truth Social was about, although related, was about NATO. And he said that he's, according to Reuters this morning, he said that in an interview that he was absolutely considering withdrawing the U.S. from NATO. I'll be discussing my disgust with NATO, he said of the speech for tonight. Asked if he was thinking about pulling out of NATO. He said, oh, absolutely, without question. Wouldn't you do that if you were me? And this of course, comes after just hours, apparently, after Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has declined to reaffirm the U.S. commitment to NATO's collective, i.e. Article 5 securities, in terms of the challenge we already have and the fact that none of the NATO members have agreed to send one ship actually to patrol through the Strait of Hormuz. And that's obviously made Trump very unhappy. What do you make of his threat against NATO now? Is this going to cajole them into doing something, or is it just going to drive the wedge further in between us?
Well, let's say that you're a marriage counselor and you get, and the couple is Donald Trump and Miss NATO, and they come to you and you look at what each has been saying about the other and what each has been doing to the other. What you'd be recommending at the end of that counseling session is, I know a good divorce lawyer, okay? Because they ain't staying together after this. It is Donald Trump has gone out of his way to embarrass, disgrace, attack NATO. And, but this, again, this is not new. Remember J.D. Vance's remarks at the Munich Security Council?
Right after they got elected.
Last February.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was basically put them on notice. Hey, you guys got to clean your act up. And there was not, hey, we're all solidarity. We're all one for all for one. No, it was not a Three Musketeers, the Three Musketeers moment. It was, you're on your own. And, you got to pay up, and hey, why don't you take responsibility for this? We essentially dump Ukraine in their lap. Okay, you guys worry about Ukraine. And while we're at it, we're going to attack a NATO member's territory in Greenland just because we want it and we don't think they should have it. You got to step back and say, okay, explain to me again what the foundation of this relationship is. Why are you hanging together to deal with the threat? Yeah, it sounds like the biggest threat is coming more from the United States than it is from Russia. It's not Russia that's talking about attacking Greenland. It's the United States.
Well, and that's actually what I want to pivot to here in the rest of it. Gary actually had an ex post of Professor Robert Pape earlier on today. Yeah. Who said, listen, I think NATO's already dead. I think it's already passed. It's just now we're waiting for the final annulment, maybe, to use your terminology a second ago here. But let me ask you, in the remainder of the time we have here, what are the ramifications of both President Trump's getting us embroiled into a war we can't win in the Middle East, making the oil prices globally rise and no apparent off-ramp, and then now basically cutting the knees out from under NATO and I think starting the time clock on its disintegration? What is all that doing to Russia? How are they responding to all this, especially while they're still in a war with Ukraine?
They got this big Cheshire cat. They got a big Cheshire cat grin on their face. They're collecting a lot of money. They're getting Europeans that are starting to quietly reach out to them and say, I know we've had some issues. Is there any chance we could repair some of that damage and get back on the same page? This is going to actually, I think, in the course of 3 to 4 years, will bring Europe much, much closer to Russia. Because just the economic realities are such that the people of Europe are going to get tired of having to pay higher liquid natural gas prices to the United States when they can get them at a far more reasonable rate from Russia. And, they don't have to you don't see Vladimir Putin running around trying to see how many European leaders he can insult in one day, like Trump is doing. So this will be, I think, a further nail in the coffin of what was once the U.S. primary role as the sole hegemon in the world. Or we may still have nuclear weapons, but we're going to wind up pretty isolated.
Can you see us, Larry, being a self-imploded version of the end of the Cold War Soviet Union, or Russia specifically, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, when they collapsed and their economy just fell into disrepair and there was all kinds of corruption in the country? Are there any parallels between the loss of the so-called Cold War for Russia after the Soviet Union disbanded and maybe the path we're on? What do you think?
Yeah, we are on a path making ourselves less relevant to the world. We've gotten away because of the central role of the petrodollar, and because so many of these countries in the past were willing to buy our treasury bills. We've been able to be on a spending spree unlike anything in history. But now, just in the past 3 weeks, Turkey has got some significant economic problems. They're selling off their gold stocks, but they're also selling off their treasury bills. China selling off its treasury bills. So the economic effect on this in the United States is going to further fuel inflation and at the same time recession. So we're going to have that stagflation that you and I both remember from the 70s, back when we were youngsters, so to speak. But we haven't seen something like that in over 53 years. So that's what awaits us on the horizon, and the image of the United States is this economic juggernaut. We'll be that juggernaut that's run aground on some reefs or shoals and taking on water. You're going to see the shifts. I mean, when it comes to economic survival, the survival instinct kicks in just like it does to someone who's drowning in water. You don't worry about, well, that was my friend there, I'm going to save them. Most people say, well, forget the friend, I got to save myself. So South Korea will start saving itself. Japan will start saving itself, and that's going to mean they're going to turn to and develop closer relationships with Russia. And Russia's in the catbird seat. It has ample supplies of oil, major supplies of liquid natural gas. It is reliant upon Kazakhstan, the former part of the Soviet Union, for its uranium, but Russia is one of the leading refiners of uranium that is then used in nuclear reactors for powering electricity. So
let me ask you one more question in the last few minutes we got here. Now I'm going to ask you to, I guess, project forward a lot. And in the affairs of humanity, there's so many undercurrents and things could go 100 different directions just in the next 5 years, much less 10 or longer. But I at least see the general outlines of an emerging danger, at least from many in the West perspective, America's in particular, to where I could see the Europe and Russia actually moving closer together, mutually recognizing instability and danger from the United States a little bit. Now, I know there's a lot of animosity because, I mean, Europe has just bent over backwards to kill Russians and talk about how they're coming after us and everything. So probably in the near term, that's not really an issue. But as economic pain starts to impose itself and people start to recognizing instability here, especially if we keep going on another 2.5 years under Trump like this, is that possible? Or is that just, no, the hatred will not be able to overcome that?
No, I think the parallels with that period from the 1920s going into the 1930s, and because remember in the beginning, right after World War I, going into 1920s, we had this League of Nations, and the League of Nations seemed to be somewhat effective. And then you had this global economic crisis, and out of that, the Depression, in that you had the rise of the Nazi Germany. And during the 1930s, the League of Nations became increasingly irrelevant, ineffective. And it continued to exist. I mean, you still had an address in Geneva, Switzerland, and people still went to work there. They got paid from it, but it was absolutely meaningless, no longer relevant. We're, I think, at a similar kind of junction right now, that the United Nations that was created to help resolve global conflicts and prevent what's going on right now is completely impotent. Completely
it's dead, in my view.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you just described about the League of Nations.
So in tandem with that, though, we're seeing the rise of the global South. Now, even despite India's waffling with, it's tried to play both sides of the issue with Israel in the West and with Russia and China, the reality for the global South is the economies of Russia, China, Brazil, and now Iran, Indonesia, Malaysia. They are actually stronger and have a higher GDP than the G7. The G7 used to be the dominant one. So we're seeing a new emerging international economic order that falls outside of the Bretton Woods system, the system that the United States set up and controlled in the aftermath of World War II. And the United States is still trying to compete with that, but in the case of the Chinese, they developed an international payment system that Iran is using right now. Any ship that wants to leave with oil, they've got to pay for it in Chinese yuan, and they pay for it through what's called CIPS, the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, CIPS. And the transactions there they're going up, and they are all digital. Whereas the SWIFT system that the West has relied upon, which is based in the Netherlands or in Belgium, it's still like an old email system. It's not digital. Yeah, and so the world is again moving away from SWIFT towards CIPS, and the fact of the matter is the Chinese are the dominant industrial power in the world. Russia is the country with the most natural resources that are needed to fuel that industrial power. So we're going to, and this is the friction point. I'd argue that was actually one of the reasons, unstated, behind the U.S. decision to attack Iran, because they see Iran is going to play a critical role in that new economic model because of its oil and gas supply. And now, by exercising control over that Gulf, the Persian Gulf, these monarchies, the Arab monarchies that have been subservient to the United States for so long, they're going to have to make a choice. If they want to continue to exist and have some hope of remaining viable economically, they're going to have to make peace with Iran.
Yeah, they're going to. And I want to reinforce that because I know we're almost out of time here, but that is, I think, an understated risk right now. Because if President Trump, if he does any kind of version of saying, I'm just going to declare victory and walk away, or whatever he may try to do tonight, the bottom line is that there is no military solution to open up the strait. You've painted the picture that shows there's not even a military path if you had 1 million troops. Right. So we can't do that. Therefore, that strait will stay in the hands of the Iranians until they choose to do something different. And there can't be too many more weeks, tell me if you disagree, for these GCC countries, because they're not getting money either. While it's not just the oil's not getting out, money's not getting in because they're not selling their products. So they're going to get into an existential threat pretty quick financially if something doesn't cave. Can you speak to that?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, it was written, I read it yesterday or early this morning. Iran is talking now to Oman, because Oman sits on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran's basically saying to Oman, you know what? We get together, we control this. We're going to charge people X amount for use, and you, Oman, are going to have a guaranteed source of income. See, that at the very, very tip up there, that is Omani territory, at the very tip of that spit of land that's on the left side. Yeah, a little all the way up. So no, go back down. You see where the horse? You see where the horse bend is?
Yeah.
Okay, go back to the horse bend. Keep going. Okay, take your cursor, just move it slightly to the right there. That spit of land that's across from that, right there, that's Oman. That's Omani territory, believe it or not. And
I did not know that.
yeah, so Oman and Iran will cut a deal, and they will be the gatekeepers for the Persian Gulf. And so at that point, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, they're going to have to decide to play ball with Oman and Iran. And they're going to have to restructure their relationships. MBS is a dirty, dangerous man. He's a piece of work. He early on was hated Iran. Yeah, he's in recent years he's tried to pretend that he liked Iran, but he was still playing the dirty game with the United States. But the going forward, the U.S. used to have a presence at Prince Saud Air Base, known as PSAB. They're just outside of Riyadh. No more. That's going to be gone. U.S. is going to be out of Bahrain, the Fifth Fleet headquarters. They may try to move down to Oman. And again, the Omanis will have some leverage with that. And the same with, Kuwait. Kuwait is going to become vacant of U.S. military presence. So we're going to see a complete restructuring of the Middle East. And in the past, the United States was relying upon, literally $1 trillion coming out of those Gulf Arabs to help fund our lifestyle of the rich and famous. Well, they've gone, they're no longer, they realize they've been had. The United States, oh yeah, we got your back. And then they turn around and look and say, where'd those gringos go? We got out of Dodge.
And Larry, I just can't help it as we get ready to shut down here. Just imagine where we were about 1 year ago when President Trump made this big Middle Eastern tour and he got all these allegedly trillions of dollars of deals. And he made that big speech where about, we're not going to have regime change anymore. We're not going to be telling you how to run your own business. We just want to do business with everybody. And man, things were great and the future looked bright. All those parties that he attended, et cetera. He has destroyed every single bit of that. Yeah. Because he got sucked into this and roped into it by Benjamin Netanyahu or whatever the process was. But now every bit of that is gone and it probably will never come back, as you say.
Yeah. No, this the biggest financial casualty out of this will be the United Arab Emirates, because they're an artificial creation. They came into being in 1971, I believe it was, because the Brits said, okay, we're going to get out of here. Here are the keys. And they just threw it to whoever happened to be closest by. And so they sorted out, because the boundaries are not from some historical legacy. It's just they're artificially created. And then they created this artificial, these gleaming office buildings, soaring skyscrapers, these incredible, this island that looks like a palm tree in the Gulf. God, all the rich from around the world were flocking there, man. We go there, it may have been a so-called Arab Muslim country, but by God, the prostitutes were hot. The food and booze you could get whatever you wanted. And the thing that I find the most ironic about it is this great, powerful new United Arab Emirate doesn't have a sewer system. So what do? That all of the poop that's created in each of those high rises flows down to holding tanks in the building, and then they're filled up every day with trucks, carted off and dumped God knows where. Think about that. You've got billions of dollars, and you couldn't even build a decent outhouse to take care of all the human waste. and they want to be taken seriously? Oh, please.
Well, they do. There's the island you're talking about right there.
Yeah.
And it is a thing to behold. It is pretty impressive to look at. Anyway, it has been, but now that not quite working out that way now. About what we've been doing. Yeah,
it is. Their economy was dependent upon exporting oil. An international trade port called Ali Jabal that was the second largest free trade port in the world. So it's inactive. It's basically shut down now because no ships are coming in and out. Tourism, construction, real estate, all frozen, all just, no activity now. And a lot of the finance, it used to be like Iran would make payments for oil through the UAE. Then that whole area of business is now gone. Iran is cycling it through China, and Iran is blowing the hell out of the UAE. So,
yeah, it is. It is just the tectonic shifts that's in the process of going on. I mean, I don't think even you and I could really figure out exactly where this is going right now. Yeah. There's too many moving parts, and there's too many things yet to come that could even more radically change the direction. But it is never going back to the way it was before. God only knows where it's going to end up, but it is going to be different.
Yeah, I wouldn't have predicted this a year ago. I'd like to say, oh yeah, I foresaw this coming. Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But also when you realize that, like, they'll say, oh, the population of Saudi Arabia, it's 36 million. Well, excuse me, but about half of that, and the same goes for Qatar, and the same goes for United Arab Emirates, are foreigners who a lot of the workers who actually keep the places running, they come from Asia. And they, they're not treated well. They live in squalor. Their passports are taken when they show up. So they're almost, it's a new form of servitude. Now, maybe they make a little more money there than they would back home and are able to send some of that back home, but they're still not free to move around, free to travel, free to do what they want. And so,
and plus, Larry, if the things continue going on the way they're going right now, and you're talking about the UAE and how the tourism has been frozen off. I mean, they're not going to have money to pay for them. And at some point, these folks may start hitting the exit signs here. So there could be some real problems.
Exiting or rioting. And the reality is these neither the Saudis nor the Emiratis, they don't have this loyal security force that's going to back them up, because even them, they're paid for. And, when the money gets tight and they're not getting paid for, then all of a sudden they can turn around and go after their former paymasters.
Yeah, this could get ugly in a hurry. This is why President Trump needs to do whatever it takes to get this war over with quickly and stop the harm that's continuing to accumulate. But I fear that tonight he'll just try and double down on something. And I mean, we'll keep watching to see what happens. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That continues to go on, by the way. All this, get your trades in quickly.
Well, it's happened the 2 consecutive Mondays, a week ago Monday, and then 2 days ago at 7:30, Trump issues out some so-called truth on Truth Social.
Yeah, that 48-hour deadline.
Ultimatum. Hey, it's looking good. Oh man, the light's at the end of the tunnel. Oh, this is going to be over soon. And boy, the stock market rockets up, and then reality intrudes, and they realize, oh no, it's not going to be over, and Iran isn't giving up. I mean, look at the volume of fire today with the ballistic missiles from Iran. That despite attempts to say, oh, they're defeated. Don't they know they're defeated? Why do they keep firing those missiles? We've destroyed them all. Well, maybe you haven't.
Maybe we haven't. Well, listen, we'll leave it there for now. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of extra time here today. Very, very fascinating. We could just keep on talking, but man, we'll all be watching what happens from the Oval Office tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. And you can count on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive to bring it to you tomorrow. But we are really grateful to you, Larry, for all the stuff you brought us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And we will be back with you tomorrow. We have some more great shows with you, but you can count on to probably sometime tomorrow morning. We'll bring you whatever happens tonight. Unless there's something breaking, we may even break in with that tonight. But otherwise, we will see you in the morning with fresh update and fresh analysis from the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Don't forget to tell your friends, the ones that love to listen to podcasts. Get them to add Daniel Davis Deep Dive to their podcast list. They need to know what you know. They can get it to where they already get their podcast. You just got to tell them.